The morning fog wrapped around the shore like a secret no one dared to speak. Elias stood beside his old wooden boat, hands trembling as he pulled in a net that shimmered with gold. Inside were not ordinary fish. They glowed faintly beneath the mist, like the ocean's heartbeat made visible. His chest tightened. He knew these were the sacred fish, the ones the village was forbidden to keep. Yet, hunger and envy whispered louder than fear. He hid the golden catch under the boards and filled the top with dull gray sardines. As Marina's voice echoed from the cliff, calling his name, Elias smiled and lied for the first time. To her, to the sea, to himself. What happens when a lie becomes the only truth you live in? Can the ocean forgive a man who tricks its heart? The tide lapped quietly, but beneath the surface, something ancient stirred. Elias rowed toward the village docks, his smile thin and forced. The other fishermen greeted him with tired jokes and hollow laughter. He lied easily now, saying the sea had been stingy, that his net barely filled. Captain Roran's eyes, sharp as broken shells, studied him quietly. Marina waited near the pier with a hopeful face that broke when she saw the meager catch. Guilt twisted inside him, but greed silenced it. He told himself it was only one lie, just one morning. The ocean seemed calm, but beneath its glassy skin, the currents turned heavier, darker, carrying a memory no man could escape. Inside their small hut, Marina mended nets while Elias avoided her eyes. The air smelled of salt and ash. She spoke softly about their debts, their child's broken shoes, the empty pantry. He nodded, promising change, yet inside he only thought of the hidden golden fish beneath the boards. He imagined selling them secretly, imagined wealth and respect. When Marina kissed his cheek, he felt her warmth fade against the chill of his secret. Lies, he realized, don't stay silent. They breathe, they grow, they whisper louder than truth. At sunset, Elias returned to the beach alone. The tide had pulled back farther than usual, exposing wet rocks and gleaming shells. He knelt and whispered thanks to the ocean for its gift. A lie wrapped in gratitude! The waves didn't answer. Instead, a single cold gust struck him, strong enough to push him back. He laughed nervously, blaming the wind, but a deep unease crept in. What if the sea could hear him? What if it could tell when a man thanked it for stolen things? That night, Elias dreamed of the sea whispering his name. Beneath his boat, golden light flickered like buried fire. He awoke, drenched in sweat, hearing faint knocking below the floorboards, steady, rhythmic, as if something inside the sea wanted to rise. He froze, heart pounding, afraid to look. Marina stirred beside him, murmuring about storms. He whispered, "It's just the wind." But the knocking continued, and deep within him he knew. The ocean had heard the lie, and it was knocking to remind him that truth never drowns forever. Dawn broke over the village, gray and heavy. Elias stood alone by the shore, his reflection trembling on the water. He told himself yesterday's knocking was a dream, just the sea playing tricks. Yet, as he stepped into his boat, the water felt colder, heavier, almost alive beneath him. When he reached for the oars, he saw small golden scales stuck to his palms, glowing faintly before fading. He rubbed them off, his heart pounding. "The sea forgets," he muttered, trying to believe. But the silence that followed was thick, like a breath being held. Far out in the mist, a single wave rose, tall, deliberate, and then disappeared. The ocean, it seemed, was thinking. At the docks, Captain Roran was already mending his nets. His sharp eyes found Elias's restless ones. "The ocean's been strange," Roran said. "Too quiet. Feels like she's listening." Elias laughed weakly, claiming ignorance, but his voice cracked. The old man stepped closer, whispering, "Don't ever lie to the water, boy. It carries your words deeper than your nets." The words struck Elias like a wave. He nodded, pretending to understand, but guilt burned behind his smile. Marina waited nearby, clutching a small basket of bread. She watched them, sensing tension she couldn't name. The ocean lapped against the dock pillars, soft, rhythmic, like a heartbeat under the wood. Later that day, Elias returned to the hidden place under his boat where the golden fish lay. But when he lifted the planks, the treasure was gone. Only a puddle of dark water remained, smelling faintly of salt and decay. Panic seized him. He searched the nets, the hull, even the sand beneath the keel, but the glow had vanished. "No," he whispered. It was real. His voice cracked like wood in the cold wind. Then he noticed the tide had pulled back farther than ever before, leaving the seabed exposed. In the distance, shapes moved beneath the water's edge, golden and slow, watching him. The ocean was taking back what he stole. That night, the wind screamed through the village. Marina lit candles as Elias paced the floor, muttering to himself. She tried to calm him, asking what haunted him, but he couldn't answer. The truth pressed against his throat like a stone. When thunder rolled across the ocean, the walls trembled, and the floorboards where he hid the fish rattled again. He froze, staring down, his breath shallow. Marina touched his shoulder gently, and he flinched. She saw the fear in his eyes, the kind that comes from guilt. Outside, the waves crashed harder, as if echoing his heartbeat. The sea had begun to speak, and its language was storm. Before dawn, the storm passed, leaving silence heavy as stone. Elias stepped outside, the air thick with sea mist. On the sand lay something impossible. A single golden fish, still alive, staring at him with calm, human-like eyes. He fell to his knees. Its scales shimmered faintly, breathing light. He whispered, "Forgive me." But the fish only opened its mouth and released a bubble that rose, glowed, and burst, revealing his own reflection inside it, distorted and drowning. He reached out, trembling. The fish flicked its tail once and slid back into the tide, vanishing without a sound. And for the first time, Elias felt the sea was not outside him, but inside, remembering everything. Days passed, but the ocean no longer offered its gifts. Elias' nets returned empty, no matter where he cast them. The other fishermen whispered that the sea was changing, that something had angered it. Elias worked longer hours, rowing farther out, chasing silence instead of fish. His eyes grew darker, his face thinner. One morning, Captain Roran confronted him at the dock. "You've taken something that wasn't yours," he said calmly. Elias denied it, his voice shaking. "The sea gives what it wants," but the old man's eyes saw through the words. "The sea gives to the honest," he replied. The words clung to Elias like salt in his wounds. That night he couldn't sleep, because deep down he feared the ocean had stopped feeding him, not out of anger, but out of justice. Marina noticed the change in him. He no longer laughed, no longer prayed before casting his nets. She begged him to rest, but Elias only stared at the horizon, obsessed with the place where the sea met the sky. He started whispering to himself, counting the tides, waiting for the golden light to return. "The treasure is still there," he muttered. "It must be." Marina wept quietly at the door, clutching his old fishing knife. She prayed to the sea for mercy, though she no longer knew whether it listened. In the distance, thunder rumbled, a warning too soft to hear over the sound of a man losing his reason. That evening, Elias rowed far beyond where any villager dared to go. The waves were gentle at first, almost luring him deeper. He whispered apologies, promises, bargains to the wind. "I only wanted to feed my family," he said. "I only lied once," but the sea replied with silence, vast and merciless. Then, a sudden current pulled the boat sideways, almost capsizing it. Beneath the surface something glowed, a swirling mass of golden light, moving like a living memory. Elias leaned over, reaching toward it, tears streaming down his face. "Please," he begged. "Just one chance to make it right." The glow faded, leaving black water behind. The ocean had listened, but not forgiven. Back in the village, Marina waited through the night, watching the waves from the cliff. Captain Roran joined her silently, his expression grim. "He's gone too far," he said. "The ocean's calling him now." Marina clutched her shawl tighter, whispering prayers through trembling lips. The wind rose, carrying a faint echo. Elias's voice, calling her name across the water. She gasped, leaning forward, but Roran held her back. "That's not him," he said. "That's the sea speaking in his voice." Below, the tide churned violently, turning the once blue water a deep golden hue, as though swallowing the light it once gave. Elias drifted through the fog until dawn. The sea had gone eerily still, and the sky turned pale. His boat, soaked and battered, floated above a calm patch of water that shimmered faintly with gold. He leaned over, peering down, and there it was, a vast pile of treasure beneath him, glowing, endless. Gold coins, jewels, relics, the ocean's heart. His eyes widened in wonder and greed. "It's real," he whispered. He stood, reaching overboard, desperate to touch it. But as his fingers broke the surface, the treasure rippled and vanished, just his reflection staring back. The boat began to sink slowly, water rising to his knees. The sea had shown him the truth. The treasure he sought had always been beneath him, but so had his lie. The morning sun rose pale and cold, as if afraid to touch the sea. Elias's boat drifted near the horizon, half sunk, creaking under its own lies. He bailed water with trembling hands, whispering prayers between gasps. "Not yet," he said. "Not like this." His reflection in the rippling water mocked him. Tired eyes, cracked lips, a man hollowed by greed. The sea around him moved unnaturally slow, each wave pulling his name into the depths. In that stillness he heard whispers, not of wind or water, but of his own voice echoing back from beneath the surface. "You lied to me," it said. His heart clenched. He looked down and saw his reflection smiling when he was not. Back at the village, Marina wandered the shore, clutching Elias's coat. Every tide brought driftwood, ropes, and broken pieces of nets. Signs of what the sea wanted her to see. Captain Roran stood beside her, silent, his face set in sorrow. "He lied to the water," he murmured. "Now it's telling the truth." Marina knelt in the sand, crying softly, her tears mixing with the foam at her feet. The ocean was calm again, almost gentle, as if mourning too. Yet the waves seemed to whisper her husband's name, Elias. Again and again, a cruel lullaby that refused to fade. At sea, Elias drifted between waking and dreams. He saw visions of his past, the first fish he caught, Marina's laughter, the old songs of the docks, but each memory twisted, replaying with the ocean's voice instead of his own. "You took what wasn't yours," it said. "Now you must give something back." Elias looked down and saw the golden fish swimming in circles around his boat, their light fading with every turn. He reached toward them, pleading, "Take the gold! Take it all." But the fish only circled tighter, glowing brighter until he could no longer see. And in that blinding light, Elias realized the sea didn't want his treasure. It wanted his truth. Thunder rolled across the horizon again, but this time the storm didn't come from the sky. It rose from the sea itself. Waves towered around Elias, spinning his boat like a leaf. He clung to the sides, shouting Marina's name, shouting for forgiveness. The water roared louder than any voice could reach. Lightning cracked over the surface, revealing the faint outline of a figure beneath the waves, his own face staring upward. He screamed, but no sound came. The ocean swallowed his words, replacing them with a final whisper. "The sea always remembers its debts. and then the boat split in two. When the storm ended, the sea lay quiet. Too quiet. Bits of Elias's boat floated on the surface, circling a calm patch of water that glowed faintly gold before fading into blue. On the shore, Marina stood motionless, staring at the horizon. Captain Roran placed a hand on her shoulder, whispering. "He's gone home to the sea." She said nothing, her tears lost in the wind. Far out where the sun met the water, something shimmered once, a brief flicker of golden light, then disappeared forever. The ocean was still again, but not empty. Somewhere below, the sea had claimed its truth. 3 days passed, and the village whispered of omens. The sea had turned quiet, too calm, as if holding its breath. Fishermen refused to sail. Even gulls avoided the shore. Marina walked the coastline alone, calling Elias's name into the wind that never answered. One morning, she found his old fishing knife washed ashore, its handle smooth, its blade rusted by salt. She clutched it to her chest, eyes full of tears and forgiveness. "You loved the ocean," she whispered, "but you forgot it could love you back, differently." The tide reached her feet gently, as though in apology. She didn't step away. The sea, once cruel, now felt like a grieving friend. Captain Roran gathered the remaining fishermen that morning. "The sea's warning is clear," he said. "We must give back what we've taken too greedily." The men nodded, fear etched on their faces. One by one, they threw handfuls of coins, shells, and trinkets into the water. Offerings for forgiveness. Marina stepped forward last, holding Elias's knife. "He lied to you," she said softly, facing the horizon. "But I won't." Her voice trembled. "He loved you. He just forgot the truth." She placed the knife into the tide, and as it sank, the waves shimmered with faint gold. A heartbeat beneath the surface. The ocean accepted. That night, Marina dreamed of the sea turning to glass. Beneath it, Elias floated peacefully, eyes closed, surrounded by golden fish. He did not look dead, only forgiven. She reached for him, and the glass surface rippled, pulling her reflection beside his. "The sea remembers truth," he whispered in her dream, "and truth never dies." When she woke, her face was wet with tears, and sea mist drifting through the open window. Outside, the waves made a new sound. Softer, slower, like a lullaby for both the living and the lost. At dawn, Marina rose before the others and walked to the cliff where Elias used to stand. She carried a small wooden carving he had once made. A fish, simple and unfinished. She placed it on a rock overlooking the sea, whispering, "This is your truth now." The wind picked up, carrying the scent of salt and rain. She closed her eyes, hearing the faint hum of the waves below, each one repeating his name. For the first time in days, she smiled, not in joy, but in peace. Love, she realized, was like the tide. It leaves, it returns, but it never forgets where home is. The sea remained calm for many seasons after that. Fishermen told stories of Elias, the man who lied to the ocean and paid with his truth. But Marina never spoke his name again. Instead, she tended to the shore, mending nets, teaching children to listen to the tides before sailing. Sometimes, when the waves were especially still, golden ripples appeared beneath her feet, brief, soft, and kind. She would pause, smile faintly, and whisper, "I know," because she understood now. The sea doesn't punish. It reflects, and somewhere deep beneath its endless blue, Elias's truth still swayed like light on the ocean floor. Seasons turned quietly over the village. Life returned. Fish filled the nets again, and laughter began to echo over the waves. Yet beneath the calm, the sea still held its memories. One morning, Captain Roran noticed something glimmering in the shallow tide, a piece of Elias's old boat, smooth and golden like drifted treasure. He picked it up, turning it in his weathered hands. "He's still out there," he whispered to himself. The ocean lapped against his boots. gentle as breath. The sea had not forgotten Elias. It never would. But it no longer raged, it simply remembered. That, Roran thought, was its truest kind of justice. Marina watched from a distance as Roran lifted the golden fragment. She smiled faintly, feeling a warmth in her chest she hadn't known for years. That night, she dreamt again. This time, not of drowning, but of floating. In the dream, Elias sat beside her in a boat made of light, his eyes kind, his voice calm. "You see," he said, "the ocean didn't hate me. It just held up a mirror I refused to face. She wanted to speak, but words dissolved like foam." He smiled. "Tell them the truth, Marina. Tell them the truth, Marina. That's all the sea ever wanted." When she woke, dawn's light painted her walls gold, and the sound of the tide was softer, like a memory sighing. The next morning, Marina walked through the village, gathering the children near the docks. "The sea is alive," she told them, "and it listens." They sat quietly, eyes wide, as she told the story of Elias, not as a warning, but as a lesson. "He was not evil," she said. "He was afraid. And when fear leads us, we lie. But lies don't stay buried. The tide always brings them back." Her words carried across the water, soft yet unshakable. The children listened, the waves echoing her story like applause. For the first time, truth and sea breathed in rhythm again. As years passed, the legend of Elias became part of the tides. Sailors left offerings before every voyage, whispering promises of honesty into the foam. Some swore that during calm nights they saw a faint glow beneath their boats, a golden shimmer moving like breath. They said it was Elias guarding the sea he once deceived. Captain Roran, older now, often stood by the shore at sunset, tipping his hat to the waves. "You were a fool," he'd say softly, "but you were ours." And each time the tide would rise just enough to touch his boots, as if nodding back. One twilight, Marina sat alone by the sea as the stars appeared. She whispered softly, "You kept your promise, Elias." The tide reached up to her hands, warm as touch. In the water's reflection, she saw not her face, but his, peaceful, smiling, fading into starlight. For a moment, the ocean glowed gold one last time, wrapping the horizon in gentle fire. Then it dimmed, leaving only the soft murmur of waves. The sea had forgiven. The truth had returned. And somewhere beneath, in its quiet, eternal heart, the fisherman who once lied now kept the ocean honest. Many years later, the village had grown quiet and content. The sea, once feared, had become a trusted friend again. Children played on the sand, their laughter carried by the same wind that once screamed with storms. Marina, older now, sat by her window overlooking the waves. Her hair was streaked with silver, her eyes soft and wise. She often spoke to the ocean as if to an old companion. "You taught me," she said softly, "not to chase gold, but to hold truth." The sea answered in gentle ripples against the rocks. Outside, the sky turned golden, a color that no longer meant greed, but grace. One evening, Captain Roran visited Marina for the last time. His beard had turned white, his steps slow, but his eyes still carried the sea within them. They sat together in silence, listening to the waves breathe. "It's strange," he said, smiling faintly. "The sea never forgets, yet somehow it forgives." Marina nodded. "That's what makes it holy." They raised small cups of tea to the horizon as the sun sank. The wind brushed past them like a whisper from another life. Both knew this would be their final meeting, but neither felt sorrow. They had both outlived the storm and understood its meaning. That night, as Marina slept, she dreamed of the deep once more. The sea was clear as glass, and Elias stood beneath it, smiling. "You kept your promise," he said. "You gave truth back to the tide." She reached for him, and their hands met through the water, warm, weightless, eternal. Was it worth it? She asked. He nodded. The lie was small, but the truth it revealed was greater. Around them, golden fish swam in perfect circles, their light soft and endless. When Marina awoke, tears rested on her cheeks, not of pain, but release. The sea hummed outside, steady as a heartbeat. When Marina passed away years later, the villagers said the ocean sang that morning. Her body was never buried in the ground. By her wish, her ashes were scattered over the waves. As the tide carried her away, the sea turned a gentle shade of gold, like a candle burning in memory. The children who once learned her stories grew old, teaching their own children. Never lie to the ocean. It remembers, but they also added what Marina taught them. And when it forgives, it gives peace deeper than land could ever hold. Generations later, when the moon hung high and the sea was calm, fishermen claimed they still saw two shapes walking on the waves, a man and a woman, hand in hand, glowing faintly gold. Some said it was a story, others swore it was truth. But everyone agreed, when they sailed with honest hearts, the tide was kind, the winds gentle, and the nets full. The sea had not forgotten Elias or Marina. It had simply forgiven them and made them part of its endless story. Because the ocean, like truth, never dies. It only waits to be heard.